Tarde.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Ana Patricia Oliveira. I am the executive coordinator in the City Hall of Rio. And now I have the duty of mediate this panel, policies, experiences, and tools to support urban agriculture. This is very correlated with the work that we do in the promotion of racial equality. I would like to also thank your presence, but also the participation in this panel. I also want to thank the organization of Milan Pact, the organization of this forum, and the invitation to be here. The city of Rio de Janeiro, beyond its natural beauties with the ocean and forests and a strong ethnical culture, it's also recognized internationally by the largest vegetable farm in the world, and it produces many benefits by using the once non-used areas of the city, promoting local producers, and promoting negative practices, but also using natural resources. Urban agriculture can also be understood through the traditional communities. There are groups that are different from language, dressing, and cultural organization. They occupy and utilize their territories by with a main condition for their survival and also in the reflection of their religion, culture, and economic.
Knowledge and experience learning are the main pillars of these communities. In addition to that, the city of Rio de Janeiro has 7 quilombola communities. They are Cafundá Astrogilda, Pedra do Sal, Pedra Bonita, Sacopã, Camorim, Gamboa, and Dona Belina. And Professor Leonidia, where is she? Represents in this panel. For a city such as Rio that hosts this important urban food sustainable forum of the Milan Pact, it's essential for us to discuss food security under the lens of the traditional community of African descent that bring together the city of Brazil. African heritage is the basis of the construction of a more sustainable city, both environmentally, socially, and economically. So this panel experiences, policies, and tools to support urban agriculture has as speakers Professor Ana Maria Bicalho from the Geography Department at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, the president of the Quilombo, Dona Belina, Professor Leonidia Carvalho, and Professor Jacqueline Ferreira, who is the manager of the Instituto Escolhas from São Paulo. So I would like to invite to the floor the panelists, Professor Ana Maria Bicalho, Professor Ana Maria Bicalho is a full professor at the postgraduate program in geography, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She has a PhD in geography from the University of London. She is a specialist in rural geography, research experience in multifunctional livelihoods and community development in rural, peri-urban, and urban areas of Brazil. Thank you, Professor. I would like to invite the second panelist, Professor Leonidia de Oliveira Carvalho. Professor Leonidia is a black woman, 52 years old, and the great-granddaughter of Condoca, one of the Quilombo matriarchs. She was born and raised in Quilombo Dona Belina. She has 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and a huge family in the region. She has a degree in history, works as a public teacher at the State Education Network of Rio de Janeiro. She has a master's in is a master's student in environment science and technology at UERJ. She's a popular educator with a focus on environment educator. Together with the community, she's a president of Quilombo Dona Belina, and she's a member of the Solidarity Web of the West Zone and seeks through education to prioritize aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals. Professor Jacqueline Ferreira, the third panelist. Professor Jacqueline is the manager of Instituto Escolha. She has a bachelor's degree in social science from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro and a PhD in social sciences from the Rio de Janeiro Rural Federal University Social Science Postgraduate Program in Development, Agriculture, and Society. She was a researcher at the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, Joaquim Venâncio Polytechnic School of Health, where she worked in research projects on health in agrarian reform areas. Thank you very much. I'm going to give the floor to Professor Ana Bicalho, and she's going to make her presentation. Good afternoon to all. It's a pleasure to be here and to share with you some experience that we have in the city of Rio de Janeiro. I've been following the agriculture in the city of Rio de Janeiro for a few years. Even before people talked about urban agriculture. So I want to exchange experiences with you as to how I see and the changes that that the agriculture in the city of Rio de Janeiro has undergone. And a little bit of what I would like to tell you. I'd like to tell you about the diversity of urban agriculture. And diversity, by diversity in agriculture, I mean diversity of management as well. I'm going to try to show you what I mean. Because when we think about urban agriculture, we think about public management. And that's not what I'm talking about. There is agriculture that comes from different types of farmers all over the city.
Socorro aqui, alguém. Pode. Não, o problema não é só meu, hein?
So I'm not the only one with a problem with the clicker here.
Foi? Qual é o... Ah, é lá em cima. Vamos então. Bom.
Okay. So agriculture in the city of Rio has 2 main views in its history. We think that one is over, but it's not over actually. So there is one vision, one point of view that is not the most pervasive one nowadays, but it's still very much rooted in the minds and of many people, which means that agriculture is separated from the city. It's not compatible with its urban use. And that comes and because of the fast populational growth, agriculture ends up becoming invisible in this urbanization process of the city of Rio de Janeiro. This not only Rio, but many other cities. And this view lasted for all of the 20th century, and it's still the point of view of many people, but it's not the point of view of people who are in this forum here. We see things exactly the opposite way, which means that the city can live with agriculture. And we need to think about what type of agriculture this is and what spaces it occupies in the city. So agriculture can remain in the city and it gains it plays different roles, not only the role of supplying food to the city. it is recognized for its food production, but also for food security linked to low-income population. It also is it can be used for playful purposes and also for celebrations and an expression of a traditions of different social groups in the city. So that's why we say that urban agriculture has many different functions or roles, not only producing food. I'm going to need help here. I clicked on the green one and it didn't work. I'm going to keep on talking because I know that I'm going to run out of time. So these are the two views that we have when you talk about urban agriculture. One is directly related to this event, and the other one that has nothing to do with this event but it's still pretty strong when we talk about urban agriculture, when we talk about this subject with people who are not involved in urban agriculture. And in the city of Rio de Janeiro, we say that there is urban agriculture and that different types of urban agriculture, there is actually a great conflict of use of urban areas and farming area. And we can see this. We can see this in terms of how agriculture can be resilient in this city, in a city that has more than 6 million inhabitants, is a city with high population density, and is the center of a metropolitan area that has more than 12 million people. I'm not going to talk about metropolitan agriculture or suburb agriculture. I'm going to focus on the municipality of Rio, the city of Rio, which is considered an urban municipality. 46.6% of the total area is urban area, is built area, and we have mountains and conservation areas that occupy more than 30% of the municipal area. Farming and agriculture in the area, in the city, when we think about the other uses, is not the major land use, but it is 9% of the total area, of the total urban area. So it's not a small number at all. What we see here on the map is that it is dispersed. We have green, yellow and red points. The yellow ones are community farmers from the city government, and the red ones are farmers, family farming clusters, and many of them have a community service. Within the processes that are necessary for urban agriculture to exist, we have a situation that there were rural areas that became urban areas, but where agriculture still lingers, and there is a problem with urban expansion. We have conflicts there. These two situations are the reason why we say that agriculture needs to be more resilient. Another way to see see agriculture in the city is the reevaluation of family gardens, backyards, because we didn't talk about backyards as agriculture, but we have productive backyards that can be recognized as agriculture in the city, as urban agriculture. But it used to be just my house, my backyard. And then we have community vegetable gardens that are ran by the city government. They are introduced in the city. And also we have vegetable gardens in schools that can be run by the school or not. It can be an initiative or of a community or the school itself. Agriculture in the city has a very diversified production. In this, we can see on the chart here. And I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 types of agriculture in resilient areas. And it's important to talk about these resilient areas, which are the former agriculture areas, former rural areas, because agriculture has been marginalized in the city of Rio since 1975. Agriculture was recognized as the main activity of the west zone of the city because it was a rural area of the municipality. In 1975, the municipality is no longer considered as a rural area. And there are many problems that come from this extinction of this rural area. So from 1975 to now, agriculture started to decrease. Some areas just disappeared, and other areas, actually some producers, some farmers, they were able to stay, but instead of commercial, they became semi-commercial. And some of the farmers were able to resist without support, without any type of support from public services, and even in terms of the whole legislation, because these are family farmers, and they're not recognized as family farmers, be them commercial or semi-commercial. And this prevents them from being served by the policies that are directed to small family farmers or small farmers. The ones that can resist as commercial farmers, they're also in the west zone, especially in Santa Cruz, Guaratiba, Vargem Grande, Vargem Pequena, and they have to have other strategies. One of the strategies is to substitute their products for more valued products for this neighbor market, which is the city. Another strategy is to expand the area of the more valued products. So we have one picture showing on the left in Santa Cruz, the area that is used to produce manioc, and we have another area that is used to produce coconut. And in Guaratiba, we have a change, a major change, and a dramatic change from produce to ornamental plants, which is a situation that happens in the area called Guaratiba. And you can see on the pie chart this diversity of production with numbers that we're not going to talk about. Another type of agriculture are the backyards. Having a backyard with some fruit or some food being produced is a common practice in the suburbs of Rio. So these plots, these households that have a backyard, which is now being recognized as part of rural agriculture, is managed by the families. It is a polyculture, so there are many different products being farmed. Its main goal is to serve the family, but many families, because they are low-income families, they're able to sell part of the production, of their production, to other people. So we have here some examples of sales. There is a garage sale, so to speak. It's a way to sell your produce and meet the demand of the neighborhood. We have a small farmer market in Vargem Grande, which is a neighborhood in the city of Rio. And this market is ran along with the association, Farmers Association of the area, which is called Agro Vargem. And we have an organic farmers market where farmers from another neighborhood called Taquara sell their produce. but none of them is served by public policies. And I think this needs to be very clear that the city of the agriculture of the city of Rio is not supported by public policies. I can't say that it's zero support, but oftentimes they are very much isolated and they end up solving the problems on their own or in groups as a community. Still talking about the backyards, but in a different management system, there are situations in which you have a community management, a multi-family arrangement. You have the backyards in different households, but you group people are from a given neighborhood. They come together to work and farm the land in the backyard. So they think about what they're going to plant. They think about how they're going to sell what they plant. And this can serve a group of people or a community or a neighborhood. This is an example, a specific case. One of our students studied at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro a program that is not tailored for urban agriculture, but it was included into another program, which is a Pastoral da Criança program by the Catholic Church that helps mothers with children nutrition, especially very young children. And urban agriculture in 2013 was included in the program. Also in the west zone of Rio. When you talk about the west zone of Rio, it's a huge area. So some parts of this area called West Zone in a neighborhood called Campo Grande, we have an example. As you can see on the pictures, you have family backyard vegetable gardens. We have 150 children that are being served by these vegetable gardens. You can see a backyard on the top picture with a group of farmers deciding as to what they're going to do with their production. Of course, all of them are not going to work in one backyard, but they are going to work in other backyards in the neighborhood, and they decide, they make decisions on together. And then you have the celebration day on the bottom picture, and on this day they provide the produce to vulnerable children, to families that have vulnerable children, children under 6 years old. And we're thinking about these first years, the early years of childhood.
Próximo, tô tentando correr. Né?
Here, I'm not gonna go too much longer. I know other people are going to talk about this issue, but I also want to give a little bit of context, which are the community garden inside favelas, which is a program from the city hall. And I think this picture is very important, and you can see 4 points in the picture. There are community gardens that are managed by the city, and they were created by the city government, which is another solidarity action. So we have the gardens from the families, which are solidarity actions, and in this picture we have the gardens that are managed by the city. And I brought a few other data, and I wanted to show more pictures. And one data that may not be presented by other people that are talking about gardens in Rio, which is the importance not only in the food for families, which is something recognized by the families, but the importance in the income of this family. So these families, they receive some sort of support, and in these areas where the families live, we have the situation of many people being unemployed. So the people who are unemployed, the little bit that they get through government support so they can act in a community garden, in a family garden through this program, can represent 73% of what they get to survive. So we have this return, this economic return for their lives, which is very important. And also, even those who have a formal job or some other sort of income, what they receive through agriculture can be more, go over 30% of their family income. So this production that they have, just one amount, one part is sold, and the rest will be produced by the family or the community themselves. But we also have this contribution that goes towards their quality of life, and they can gain access to benefits and other things. And I also put an example of what are the activities that these workers in an informal way can have outside of agriculture. So they can be painters, they can be constructor workers, they can also have formal jobs like cookers, sewers. So these are other activities that these people with low income can have as well. And here I'm not going to read everything, but a few of the challenges that we see through the dynamic of the city or in conversations with people, some of the challenges of urban agriculture in this diverse environment. So I divide it through positive and negative points or more difficult points. One positive point is that they have the experience of the family in agriculture. So a lot of them are the children or grandchildren of farmers, or even people have migrated from rural areas. So they participate in short chains of commerce. So they have also a direct contact and ways of commercializing their produce, be it in their own community or through a local market. And something very important, and maybe is not considered by the farmers but by the studies, is their collective organization. There are many associations of farmers, co-ops, and all of their collective actions, like the Quilombola population. They are a collective community that has a strong unity. A lot of things that have been gained in political orientation that may not be implemented, but they were written, they were gained by movements and pressure movements by these communities. And we also got the authorization for some local markets through these pressures from the communities. So the organization, the collective organization, is important to maintain this urban agriculture. And also in the negative points, of course, the urban expansion, depending on the time, depending on the year, it will be stronger or not. So the land use and the competition with the use of land with businesses, and also conflicts between urban policies and food policies. If we don't, maybe there are not local food policies, but even in the state level or national level that could give support, but that is so hard to happen. So the urban farmer is not considered a farmer, or a family farmer may not be considered a farmer because they don't have the business farming activity. So they don't become eligible for government support. So there's also a lack of technical support. And I believe those are the main points of difficulty. And somebody before me in the last session spoke about changes and administrative changes. So the policy changes. Sometimes we have a political definition that changes from one day to another. So if you have one person who changes in that policy, they give less value or not for the decision. So I'm sorry, everyone. Thank you so much.
Maravilhosa exposição, professora.
Great exposition, Professor. Thank you so much for your presence, for contributing to this panel, to our knowledge. I'm now going to give the floor to Professor Lenida de Carvalho to talk. We are a little bit short on time, but we're going to continue on. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so glad to be here. Part of this conversation is an opening for communities to be a part of things that didn't happen before. So I'm thankful. I want to talk a little bit about the place I live in. I was born and raised in Rio da Prata in Campo Grande, which is in the west zone of Rio. So I live in Pedra Branca. This region in my childhood, when I was growing up, was a very rural community, and there was a lot of practices of gardens, family gardens, backyard gardens, and the professor was talking about these things, and I was thinking, she's talking about me, my family, my neighbors. This region is a region that, through the urbanizing process, was losing its rural characteristics. And I feel like I'm repeating the words from the last speaker, but this is something we live. I just want to go through the slides. Can someone help me, please? So this beautiful picture, I feel like it's the entrance of our community. We have the church of Nossa Senhora das Dores, and we have also the park of Rio da Patra. The church, as well as the place that I live, are at the sides of the park. And the park, there was a decree where, in one instance, that place became a park, a public park. And the population, who was very low income, didn't know what was going on. So something top down came to them saying, now this is a public park. So how is the farmer going to live? And there was not a plan for the park. And the park was built to be a natural park. And a lot of people, they started to try to find places to live on the outskirts of the park, and they abandoned their farming practices. And a lot of people got sick. My family even went through this as well. So with time passing, there were a lot of struggle, and then it was created. Can you just go a little bit ahead? So the association of the inhabitants of the farmers of Pedra Branca in between 2001 and 2003 was created, and there was the group Panela de Barro that helped us, and then we got the first organic farming association of Rio de Janeiro. So these farmers, they plant everything. So they have persimmon, we have roots, we have different fruits. Now a lot of ornamental plants taking place now, and I was hearing what the professor is saying, and this is all happening in my community. But Agroprata, the association, continued to plant organic produce, and we had support of a few policies, non-governmental policies, and in this way we were able to maintain our farming. And the region that we are, the Agropata, weekly we have an organic market on Sundays, and the producers they sell their produce. We also have the participation of the farmers in the organic market circuit in the city of Rio de Janeiro. Today, these farmers, they already know, they go to forums and also events. They know what organic mean. They know what deforestation means. But back in the 80s, they didn't know any of this, but they would plant without using chemicals. So before they were certified, they already planted real food. And they already were able to support their families and have quality food. But many abandoned farming, and the pressure that was in this region was major. And that saddens us a lot. So we see this community, there were a lot of religious centers, and there was farming, and the community was able to remain its culture, but now we only have one religious outspur in this Quilombo. And the pressure that we face is not just agricultural, it's culture in everything. We don't have the support of public policies, and I believe this forum is a place that we can ask for help. Can you go back to the slide? 2017, we were certified as a Quilombola community. This was a struggle that we faced, and we started to fight for this right. And together with researchers, we gathered together the documentation necessary, and together with the Panela de Barro group, we sent the documentation, and the Palmares Foundation in 2017 finally recognized us. We don't have our own lands yet, so many of the farmers, they don't have their own plot of land. So each year we have the Persimmon Feast. We have, before that, we will gather the persimmon, and we have this party and this festival that begins in March and ends in May. And this is already in our city's calendar. We also had other important initiatives, and I want to share, and I am active part of this. We have a community garden that began thinking about the issue of food during the pandemic. I am the daughter of farmers, but we had a family production just for ourselves. But with the pandemics, we had to open our doors, and we created this community garden. This garden started with about 10 families, and now we have around 30 families that are participating in our community garden, and they're producing. And we also have food education. We have schools that come to us continually. So this has been an important space where we have developed a lot of technology in social environmental issues. We also do roundtables, many different conversations around these topics. We do workshops for women so they can get back some of the traditions and cultures that we used to have, like clay workshops, and also the use of different trees and weaving, things that our grandmothers used to do, but we don't do it anymore. So here we have a few pictures, and in these pictures we have different days of our community garden. We are open every Friday to do cleaning for our gardens. We also receive people in other days, like Saturdays, so we can do the round tables and sharing of knowledge. And we don't teach there, we learn. Every day we learn there. So, what are we producing? We plant a little bit of everything: fruits, vegetables, forestry, and we even do some baking. So, what are our main problems as farmers? Most of us, people who are here in the picture, they don't own their own land. We are sons, grandsons of farmers who don't own their own land. And this is sad because these peoples, and with their daily practices, men, women, mostly women, they know how to plant. They know how to educate. They share knowledge, and we learn a lot in this space. So I'm very thankful for all of the learning that I gained through my community. And I see myself today a part, most than ever, in this Quilombola identity that we try through this ancestry knowledge. We keep planting ideas, education, planting and sowing so that we can feed ourselves inside the city. I want to thank everyone that were patient enough to hear from me, a few groups, especially that support our garden, like the Teia de Solidariedade from the West Zone, and so many other women that support me, the nonprofit SBTA, a lot of social technology we gain through this partnership, through the Sertão Carioca project. I want to thank the Rural University that is always visiting us with their students and ideas and partnerships, proposals. The State University that helps me so much where I do my master's. And I've learned how to be an individual inside this academic environment and to think that we can change. Agriculture in Rio has a lot of potential and needs to be valued again and again, because if we don't have a farmer, we won't eat. And we need to think about this. I'm very sad. I was very saddened in the pandemic, and I was saved through the gardens that I was able to share with my friends. Thank you so much.
Obrigada, professora.
Thank you, Professor, for the beautiful presentation, for your words, and for all the knowledge that you shared with all of us. Professor Jacqueline, you have the floor. Could I get the clicker? See if I can manage. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the wonderful presentations. A lot of was said about public policies, and this is the main theme of my presentation. First, I would like to say that talk a little bit about the Escolhas Institute. It's an organization, a nonprofit, is a NGO that works with studies and analysis to offer references, data for sustainable development public policies. We work with other themes such as land use and bioeconomy, but we've been working a lot with urban agriculture as well, urban food systems. And I think you got this leaflet that has 6 studies to know and foster urban and peri-urban agriculture. You see that these studies are directly related and that they want to establish a dialogue with the public power. We try to collect data about Belém, São Paulo, and what would be the potential of urban agriculture in these cities and the metropolis of São Paulo. And we found very relevant data that could they could feed all the city of Belém and the metropolis of São Paulo. We also have a study that on the contribution of urban agriculture to the ecosystemic services. So how it could contribute to mitigate heat, to improve water absorption by the soil. Also other studies on agriculture in metropolis. You can see on the QR code on the back of the leaflet that we distributed. If you want one copy, you can ask my colleague, and she's the back of the room. So I'm going to show you an online platform that we launched the week before last, and it's already available. It's an urban agriculture policy website platform that we mapped, and they are directed to strengthening urban agriculture. We established a dialogue with city governments, and we found that there is a lot of experience, but this was not systematized. This was not organized in one single place. And we thought that it would be interesting that we would have this new place where new city governments or local governments, governments that already work with this, could know about each other's experience. So this was our motivation. This was the motivation of our work. As Professor Anna said, there is agriculture. It's just invisible. So there was a survey that we did about on agriculture in metropolitan areas. If you take the farming census, shows that there are many areas in the metropolitan areas. You can see that in São Paulo, for example, there are 5,000. In Rio, in the metropolitan area, there are 7,000. So these are official data from the farming census. We have institutionalized vegetable gardens. We have other types of gardens. The problem is they're just invisible. They're not in the master plan for the city government. So the idea is it's there. But what can we do to strengthen and to have more of a strategic focus to guarantee food security? And this is very, very important in this part, in the time that we are. So in this urban platform, you can see the different initiatives that we mapped. There are 100 initiatives, and you can also find detailed information on each one of the initiatives. For example, you can find the bill and also the form that the city government uses to choose the vegetable gardens that are going to be supported by the city government, or the specific regulation of a given municipality that we mapped uses to establish where you can have vegetable gardens or where you can't. So it's a tool for regional governments. And we also conducted five case studies in the cities of Belo Horizonte, Curitiba, Rio de Janeiro, and Recife, showing how they implement urban vegetable gardens. And this is a specific policy for urban vegetable gardens. I'm going to talk very fast about the mapping that we did, some of the results of the 100 cases that we mapped. We prioritized the municipalities with 50,000, more than 50,000 inhabitants, and we wanted to know what they were doing to promote urban agriculture. In this mapping, you can see that the municipality is the main actor in this implementation. We say that we've been saying that it's very hard for state government to support urban agriculture. So the municipality, the city government is the main character, the main player there. And of course, there are many cases of an association between the government and civil society. Of the 100 cases, 5 are in the center-west region, 17 in the northeast, and the rest, 30 in the south region, and 40 in the southeast. The oldest are from the 1980s. We can talk about Sete Lagoas in Minas Gerais and Porto Alegre in Rio Grande do Sul and also São Paulo. There are many cases in Belo Horizonte from the 70s and 80s, but there is a boom in the year 2000. And I think this corroborates the importance of the federal government in directing efforts to food security efforts. And the main policy that we found is the policy that fosters the production and urban vegetable gardens. That's why we detailed 5 cases. So there are municipalities that foster vegetable gardens in areas that are not being used. And this policy, it has a very good potential to improve the lives of many people. There are 2 studies that you can see in details in this publication that I showed you. But for example, in São Paulo, we found that 200 hectares cultivated in lots of variable urban areas and in a sustainable manner would have the potential to provide greens and vegetables to around 80,000 people and occupying 1,000 workers. This is a very significant number. This extension, this area, is equal to the area of empty lands in the districts of Sapopembas, and the number of families that could consume the food, 24,000, correspond to 1.5 times the number of families beneficiary of the Bolsa Família program in that district. We found that 344 hectares cultivated in available urban areas, where there are no forests, where there are no buildings, empty areas, could provide 1.7 million people a year with vegetables and greens, and also generate jobs for 1,376 people. And if we looked as a specific neighborhood in Belém, it's called a Tenoné neighborhood, we mapped 48 hectares that would be available to urban vegetable gardens. And this area could produce 2,683 tons of food per year that could supply food to 230,000 people, generate employment and income for 191 people. We're talking about a very vulnerable neighborhood with 6,000 families enrolled in the Cadastro Único, which is a social program, and they could directly benefit from this program. We can see Belo Horizonte, Curitiba, Recife, and Rio de Janeiro. Belo Horizonte has a high degree of transparency for eligibility of the proposals. All this process is very transparent, and you can see the different types of forms, how they do it. It's all, you can find all of that on the platform. This is our focus in Belo Horizonte. In Curitiba, there's a high degree of institutionalization and strategy of large-scale gain. It's a very interesting case study to inspire all the other city governments that are here. Recife created an exclusive body to implement the policy. It's called the Executive Secretary of Urban Agriculture. And in Rio de Janeiro, there is a synergy between the goals to redistribute food, food security, and generation of income. There are vegetable gardens in where the produce is given to families that are in a situation of vulnerability. And so these cases can be very useful to other cities that want to implement urban vegetable gardens. You can see the results here on this table. You can see community, you can see urban vegetable gardens, you can see the Carioca vegetables gardens. You can see that in Curitiba there were 123 vegetable gardens implemented, in Recife 63, and in Rio 56 urban vegetable gardens implemented. We also try to bring together recommendations for fostering urban vegetable gardens, and some of them have been already mentioned as important public policies. The first one is access to land. So it's important for cities who want to implement urban vegetable gardens to map available spaces, available areas, and that they also find how they can guarantee access to land. And these areas need to be areas where there are families, vulnerable families, and women and young people should be included, so that these areas can have a social function as well. We also recommend that initiatives be selected by means of transparent processes and grounded in objective criteria. prioritize the implementation of programs with organized groups of civil society because they already have a history, an experience of a relationship with agriculture, and this is very important. It's very important to identify these groups and use the experience so that the vegetable gardens can work, can be successful. This is another recommendation that we give, that we make. Also, open spaces for implementing different models of urban vegetable gardens. And we're talking about including traditional populations such as quilombolas, indigenous groups, gypsy camps, among others, both for food and for medicinal plants, because we know that there is a high diversity there, and we're talking about agricultures. It's important that the government keeps this in mind, and also establish effective procedures of destination of production, because normally there are no clear criteria, and this would be very important to grant transparency to the results. We need to know what are the results in terms of promoting food security, and also developing legal mechanisms for concession of the potential public and private areas for the urban vegetable garden. We can have partnerships between universities such as EMATES and other university bodies. This is very important for this program to continue, and also to monitor the initiatives. We need to measure agricultural production, and we need to follow up close the results. We need to put together reports and broadly disseminate the good practices and the successful results so that we can have more and more urban vegetable gardens and promote food security. You can access this platform at 100politicas.escolhas.org. It's available only in Portuguese because we're talking about policies for Brazil, but it's an important mechanism that you can access, where you can access bills and forms and regulations. All of this would help you put together a number of references that could help you broaden or expand initiatives that foster family agriculture, not only urban vegetable gardens, but also policies for promoting street market and farmers markets. The problem is that it's not prioritized, and there's no visibility for the results. So we call you to value what we already have and multiply what we already have, multiply successful experiences. Thank you very much.
Obrigada, professora.
Thank you so much, Professor, for the beautiful exposition, all the knowledge that you shared with us. Now, since it's already too late, I'll be brief in closing. But again, I want to thank the three professors, thank everyone for coming this moment that you were here with us. I want to thank again to the organization of this forum. I think more than ever, we need spaces like this, spaces that share knowledge, because it's here that we gain critical conscience and we gain in democracy, and we help to foster a more equal society. And I want to say that the coordination of racial equality promotion, I want to strengthen our commitment with this topic because this is very important in our city policies. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.